Morning, grades. Tuesday, April 7th. It was nice to talk and see some of you yesterday on the Zoom call. Our next one we'll do on Monday, April 20th at 1 o'clock. Because remember, next week, no school, Easter break and all that. I know you guys are at home like a break anyway, but for me, I won't be coming out to school. Hopefully you've read page 138, 139 on the political system. Remember, it's hierarchical, meaning control from the top. It's a military government. The shogunate, Takegawa Ieyasu was the original shogun. His family maintained power and control for many generations. It's set up as a military control. Okay? You do have these domains, provinces that are controlled by the daimyo. They're feudal lords. They're put into place by the shogun. 3 levels. His most trusted and loyal to him get the most land and power and control. His nobles and family members get the next. And then the lowest standing of those that didn't do much for him in battles, don't have a lot of power and control, but still are part of his loyalty, they get land. The local areas ruled by a Han, local government, but the daimyos constantly checked on them to making sure they are getting work done, they're paying their taxes, they're being loyal, they are recognizing the shogun as the control. Then you do have your centralized government, which is ruled by the shogun, that's a bakufu. Okay, that's a military government. Again, everything in the beginning of Edo Japan was through the military, ruled by the shogun, ruled by fear. People were not going to go against the shogun because he had the military and he showed his power. The memoirs of the Secret Empire, he watched how he kind of waited his time from a boy, moved up, eventually gained control over others who maybe had more standing than he did to be the shogun, but he ruled, controlled, and with the fear, and everybody got on his side of the shogun. And the samurai. So that's kind of the political system, rule from the top down through a military government. If you stay in good standing, you'll have a good life for a daimyo. One key though, 139, if you read the laws that were set up by the shogun, it says no unnecessary contact between the daimyo, meaning you and your neighbor can't conspire together. You can't marry another daimyo because then you get more land and control. You weren't allowed to grow yourself because that would make a threat to the shogun. Only one castle in each area. The maps had to be given to the centralized government saying you couldn't hide any riches or things from the government. Every second year you had to go to Edo and spend a year with the shogun. Your family stayed at your local area, but you as the daimyo, as a feudal lord, had to go. That way he could watch over you. And if you did anything, your family was by themselves and the samurai could deal with them. So kind of keeping them in fear even though they're his feudal lords. Everybody must register at a Buddha temple now. So they've got kicked out Christianity, they're going back to Buddhism. Where they're going to recognize the shogun as the leader, no more Christianity, and you can't travel around. So again, that closed border, making sure everybody's following the rules, staying in place because the fear of the samurai. Eventually, as peace settles in, and you read your notes, you'll see the samurai kind of lose power. They lose control, they lose respect, because they don't have anybody to defend. Everybody's falling in place, everybody's staying in their system. I'll talk about the class system in a second, and that's your research is going to be in the class system, 2 different classes, what life might have been like. So please read these pages 138 and 139 for this, and then 140 to 145 for the class systems, and that assignment's due tomorrow. Thank you. All right, grades, continuing where I just left off, talking about the political system. Reading on page 140 about the class system, and that's what your assignment is on. You have to pick at least 2 of the classes in Edo Japan, research them, describe what life might have been like for those people. I mentioned the political system was a hierarchical system, well, so was the class system. I kind of laid out here Japan, Spain, and the Aztecs. Again, all have somebody on top. Biggest difference here is the emperor is just a figurehead in Edo Japan. No real power control. Just that divine right. He's there. People recognize him as the leader, but really at this time in history, in Edo Japan, he has no say in control. The shogun, okay, who gained that control through military. You watch the Memoirs of a Secret Empire, where the Tokugawa Ieyasu gained control of Japan. Okay, his family, the Tokugawa shogunate, controlled for many generations now. They are the leader. They have their daimyos, we just mentioned that, with the political system. Those are the feudal lord, the landowners that are controlling the local areas. They've got samurai help, so kind of your class system. Ronin, we don't talk a lot about, but those are kind of samurais who are kind of lost status. They're not really in favor anymore. They were once maybe a samurai, but now they're kind of in limbo. They're not working for anybody. They're not respected as much. You could do that as a separate class system. Then we get into the peasants or farmers. In Japan, farming is important, but not as important as the Aztecs, where farmers are quite high up and important, given a lot more status. In Japan, they're not. Your artisans, your merchants, and then you kind of get down into the outcasts and non-humans, which aren't listed in some of the pictures, but they're in your textbook. Look at the lack of rights for those people and what jobs they do, especially non-humans. In Edo, Japan, a non-human had no right, didn't exist. If he was murdered, there was no penalty against it. So try to pick from different levels of the class system for your research, just to see what it might have been like. If you want to shoot a video as that person might have been like, great. Always do a comparison. You have the king in Spain, you do have an emperor in Aztec, they do have power, but they kind of talk to the church in both areas. High priests and the church. Not so much in Japan. The shogun was doing it through military versus through religion-based. Then you have nobility in both, as we talked about, and kind of going down. Again, a lot of commoners in every area. Lots of commoners who don't have a lot of say. Aztecs had slavery, but remember, the slavery was sometimes a choice. A lot of the slavery was when you capture somebody and brought them to work for you. But yet slavery is a choice. When you're looking at this, being a slave versus a non-human, slaves had more rights, could get themselves out of that poverty by working and paying off their debt. Non-humans, outcasts, you were stuck in that. For many, many, many generations, you could not get out of those classes you were put into by your previous family. There was no moving within class. Where the Aztecs, you could move within class. You could gain and work and get land and get up and move in class. You could come up with ideas. Even in Spain, you got your herders are the lowest class. Farmers are pretty low because they aren't utilizing the land. But you could move up by moving into the city. City-states we talked about, going and coming up and getting a job, working, you could move up. In Japan, you were kind of stuck in the class system. So in your research, try to pick different class systems, go in depth with it, not just a textbook. Look up what life might have been like in Edo, Japan for the different classes and what, actually put yourself in your shoes and again compare it to Spain and the Aztecs.